All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler and a much better golf DFS player. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where earlier this week I posted some research around the previous winners of the Sanderson Farms Championship at the Country Club of Jackson. Some patterns that those winners shared throughout the years, and the players in the field this week who also have those patterns. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show, so that'll be out later this evening. So if you want to see those pieces of information, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. I really can't say enough good things about it. It's a wonderful way to start your week of preparation, and he continues to update you with his own version of research throughout the week. And if you are a subscriber to his article, which is free to do, you are going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday evening as we continue the DFS talk over there. We talk about game theory, our favorite players that we're using, some scary fades, any 6K plays. You really are missing out if you aren't subscribed to his article, both in terms of the article itself and being able to join us in his Substack chat. So make sure you are subscribed and go show him some support. Follow him over on social media. Finally, we're live. Chat is open. Again, I want to hear from you all in addition to the poll question, which I have typed up. I want to hear who your winner is, who some of your favorite plays are, who are you staying away from, how do you think the Country Club of Jackson is going to play this week, all of that. Feel free to jump in chat with any questions that you have for the week. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2024 Sanderson Farms Championship. And we are going to start, as we customarily do, on a Wednesday evening, as soon as I center the camera, with the super forecast over at Windfinder, and I will post the poll question, which is simply who scores the most fantasy points this week? Not necessarily who has the best finish. Who scores the most fantasy points this week among the four options? Is it Ricky Fowler? Is it Mackenzie Hughes? Stephen Yeager, or Corn Ferry Tour grad Matt McCarty? So I will go ahead and put that out there. Would love to hear the community's thoughts on the poll question this week. And if you have a good idea for a poll question yourself, feel free to jump in chat, and perhaps I will use that as a template for a question at a future date. The forecast for Jackson, Mississippi is pretty darn calm. Very little wind tomorrow. Just pristine. Highs in the low 80s. Looks just like a fantastic day for golf. The Friday morning wave or portion could deal with some gustier winds, but really there isn't a whole lot here. If you wanted to make the argument that the Thursday AM and Friday PM has the better half of the draw, I wouldn't fight you too much on that, considering what seems to be the worst of the wind is on Friday morning. I just don't think there's enough here to factor that significantly into your lineups or into your considerations. If you want to use it as a tiebreaker, by all means. I just don't think there's enough here to designate a wave advantage, or at least a very significant wave advantage. And if we zoom out and look at Saturday and Sunday, Saturday looks much the same. Perhaps the temperature gets a little warmer throughout the week, but maybe some slight gusty winds in the morning, and then Sunday much the same, just very calm winds seemingly. So this looks like a fantastic week weather-wise for golf down in Jackson, Mississippi. So I'll bring us back to the super forecast one more time. Again, very little wind tomorrow. Maybe some slightly gusty winds tomorrow morning. I just don't think it's enough of a factor to, or big enough of a factor to really alter your lineups around it. If you want to use it as a tiebreaker, sure. But really just play the guys that you're confident in this week. So we'll move to Fantasy National, and you're going to see that I have this set quite a bit differently this evening. And I'm going to start the kind of review, the quick review with this. We spent quite a bit of time talking about spike putting on Monday night. And I'm going to be honest, I did not put spike putting into the mixed condition model. I just have putting or total putting on on Lightning Bermuda greens. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted some of the putters that tend to spike on Lightning Bermuda greens for your information in case you want to factor this in at all. Hey, good evening, P. Thanks for jumping in chat. It's good to see you this evening. Much appreciated. How has your kind of month been, really? Haven't seen you since the Pro Core. Didn't do anything for the President's Cup last week. Can listen, only hope is all is well. Well, I just appreciate you tuning in. So, like I mentioned, hopefully all is well. You enjoyed the President's Cup. You're doing well in any other fantasy endeavors, whether it's fantasy baseball, fantasy football, anything to that effect. But good to see you this evening. Thanks for jumping into chat and tuning in this evening. Again, I wanted to make sure we hit this spike percentage or spikeability in putting just as quick reminders and whatnot. I am only looking at Lightning Bermuda. I believe Monday night we looked at Fast and Lightning Bermuda. I did confirm last year and Luke List's win. Those 4 rounds were considered lightning speed greens as well. So every single round the past 6 years has been considered lightning per Fantasy National. So I think it's safe to say that we're going to be looking at lightning speed greens. If they play fast, I'll just be weak to that. But on Lightning Bermuda greens, the players that are most often gaining 1 or more strokes in their round putting, you've got Taylor Montgomery. You've got several players with a few rounds here. Nick Dunlap, Chandler Phillips, Wilson Furr, Bo Hostler. Almost half the time he's gaining 1 or more on Lightning Bermuda greens since probably 17 or 18. Yeah, 2017. I went ahead and captured every single round. That way we just have enough rounds to make it statistically significant, because there's not a whole lot of rounds that are considered lightning on the PGA Tour. But Bo Hostler, Mav McNeely, Zach Blair, Ben Griffin in a fewer set of rounds, but still has putt extremely well on Lightning Bermuda, or at least spiked a lot, 44%. Some other names here that might be interesting: Justin Lauer, S.H. Kim, Bud Cauley, Robbie Shelton, Chesson Hadley, Seamus Power, 36% of the time has gained 1 or more strokes in a round on Lightning Bermuda. Again, this number is really subjective on what you think is spiking per round. I went ahead and looked at 1. I'll show 2 just very, very quickly. The numbers are going to decrease. Obviously, very, very difficult to gain 2 in a round. So your top spike putters on Lightning Bermuda greens, meaning gaining 2 or more in a round. You've got, Bo Hostler, Taylor Montgomery, Zach Blair, Peter Malnati now jumps up. Svensson jumps up 21% of the time. he gains 2 or more strokes on Lightning Bermuda. Mav McNeely, Sam Ryder, Brandon Wu, Matt Kuchar, Grillo is up here just under 20%. So there's a few names for you in terms of spikeability on Lightning Bermuda greens. And again, as I mentioned Monday, and I'll mention it again tonight, I think the more important thing to look at this week is the spikeability of a player as opposed to their just performance on Lightning Bermuda greens. We've seen poor putters win here at the Country Club at Jackson. Luke List, Cameron Champ. These guys just aren't known for their putting and yet have won. We've also seen good putters, Sam Burns, Mackenzie Hughes, these guys who are good. So I didn't want to throw out good Lightning Bermuda putters all the way. So there is some putting in the mixed condition model. And then the only other thing we're going to look at in terms of review, because I did not end up putting it in the mixed condition model, let's take a quick look at proximity. Again, the majority of your approach shots here at Country Club of Jackson come from 100 to 150, but the data kind of showed that 100 to 125 was the more important of those two ranges. Good evening, Larry. Thanks for jumping in to chat. Much appreciated. Bubba Watson is not playing. He is on live. Or he is on on the live tour. So he is not played in any PGA event, I should say non-major PGA event, since going to live. But it's good to see you this evening. Thanks for jumping in chat and checking out the show. Very much appreciated. Your top performers in proximity from 100 to 125 yards for the 2024 year. Taylor Montgomery, Roger Sloan, Lucas Glover, Eric Cole, Kevin Streelman, Pearson Coody, Charlie Hoffman, Ben Coles, Ryan Fox, and JJ Spawn. Those are your top 10 in terms of proximity 100 to 125. So make sure you give these players, some added consideration, I would say, because I did not find a way to put this metric in the mixed condition model. What's your GIN? I'm not sure what you're asking, unless that was a typo. So yeah, there's your proximity. Most of these players are pretty good with 125 to 150 as well. Streelman maybe not so much. Coody and Hoffman maybe not so much. But somebody like Chan Kim, first from 125 to 150, 13th from 100 to 125. Seamus Powers solid in both. Kuchar solid in both. Gim, Phillips. What's my handicap? I actually don't have one. I play some golf, but it's mostly in scrambles. I'm roughly a bogey golfer, maybe a little bit better. But, I'm by no means spectacular. All right, so I've talked about a couple of things that I didn't put in the mixed condition model. So let's go ahead and go to the actual mixed condition model and see what I did put in this week at the Sanderson Farms. So we're going to start with off the tee. I mentioned how I was surprised a little bit Monday night in how much off the tee really does contribute for players who are finishing in the top 30, top 20, top 10. So 10% in off the tee when scoring is easy relative to par. There have been several rounds that have been easy, quite a few rounds that are average. It's definitely not difficult here at the Country Club of Jackson, but with the very calm winds that is forecast for the Country Club of Jackson, I think it's going to play pretty easy. Expect players to go, exactly. Like I was mentioning, the average winning score here at the Country Club of Jackson has been 19 under, minus 19. Lots of low scores here. Maybe not the absolute birdie fest that a Kapalua or that a TPC Craig Ranch or a Travelers is, but it's definitely not difficult here. And the fairways, even though they're pretty narrow and difficult to hit, there's not a lot of tricks to them. There's not a lot of dog legs. Kind of what you see is what you get around the Country Club of Jackson. So 10% on off the tee when rounds are easy relative to par. I'm going to skip a couple because we're focused on the bombers this week. I do want to see who just hits the ball the furthest because there is not a lot of trouble around the Country Club of Jackson. The rough isn't penalizing. It's not very thick. It's not very difficult to play out of. These greens are easy to hit from the fairway or the rough. So 10% driving distance. And that's in the last 3 months. I just wanted to see who's in the recency, who has been hitting the ball the furthest in this field. 3 under, I imagine the pros will be around 9 or 10. I mean, that's a really, really good round for someone. I'm assuming that you're an amateur, that you don't play semi or professionally. So that's a fantastic round. But yes, Country Club Jackson's pretty darn easy for PGA Tour players. I would not be surprised to see a winning score in the 20s this week. The cut line probably going to be 3 or 4 under would be my guess, and then the median probably somewhere like you said, 10, 11 under or so. 15 handicap. I just got hot. That's what it takes, and that's what it's going to take for these professionals here because these greens aren't very difficult. This comes down to a putting contest a lot of times. So anything off the tee, we just talked about 10% off the tee when it's easy, 10% in driving distance, only 10% in approach. And this is one of the few courses that I have this low a percentage in approach. It just isn't that big of a factor around here. It's still important, but it's not, the be-all, end-all like a Jack Nicklaus course or a Pete Dye course, for example. So only 10% in approach, and again, that's only in the last 3 months or 36 rounds. Only 5% on the Lightning Bermuda greens, as I was talking about. I'm much more focused on the spikeability of a player this week, not just their baseline performance on Lightning Bermuda greens. So I didn't want to overweight this. I was pretty cautious with it. If anything, I think this is a little light. I think you can afford to go to 10% on putting. But again, I just wanted to make sure I didn't overweight good putters because we've seen poor putters win at the Sanderson Farms. So 5% putting. The biggest aspect of the week, players are going to have to go low. I want to see who gives themselves the most opportunities. 25% opportunities gained when rounds are easy relative to par. When rounds are easy, who still gives themselves the most opportunities? They're going to have to make their putts. So it's a combination of the players who can spike and who gives themselves plenty of opportunities. So this is really a little bit of proximity, a little bit of approach. That's why I felt comfortable only having 10% in approach because I knew I was going to have so much in the opportunities gained. 15% birdies or better gained when rounds are easy. Again, players are going to have to make their putts. Who is adept at going low? You can afford to take a couple of bogeys. So long as you're getting 24, 25 holes that are under par, you're going to be there at the end of the tournament. Who goes low, especially when it's easy? 15% there. 5% on the total par threes. We looked at the detailed data Monday night and saw that no real range of par threes really contributes the majority of the strokes gained. Now, all par threes fall essentially between 150 and 225 here at the Country Club of Jackson. So we're going to look at all par threes, only 5%. It hasn't been the biggest deal for many of the players that finish in the top 10, top 20, but your winners have generally performed pretty well at the par 3. So that's why there's 5% there. Nothing to do with par 4s. They're just kind of mitigated here at the Country Club of Jackson. Instead, 20% on par 5s, 550 to 600. All three par 5s, three of the 4 par 5s fall to this range on the scorecard. 70% of the strokes gained in par 5s come into this range. The others fall under 550. The rest of the 30% are, whatever, rounding. So I want to see who plays this length of holes the best, because that's who's going to have a major advantage this week at the Country Club of Jackson. So there's a look at the mixed condition model that I have for the Country Club of Jackson this week. No around the green. If around the green matters, I'll be dead in the water. But generally around the green doesn't matter because these greens are so easy to hit. If players are having to rely around their green, or you are having to rely on their around the green game, generally probably scrambling. They're not going to be hanging in with the rest of the field that's getting their birdies. If accuracy off the tee is more prevalent or more of a premium than distance, I'll be weak to that. But I really do feel that we're wanting to focus on the bombers. Again, I think this might be a little bit light in the putting, but I didn't want to overweight traditionally good putters. I just wanted to look at the spikeability, or mainly look at the spikeability. So there's a look at the mixed condition model. Let's go to the rankings that I have for the Sanderson Farms this week. A reminder to those of you who are returning viewers, for your information, if you are a new viewer, my rankings are based on 3 criteria. The FNGC rank, or the Fantasy National rank, which is a straight numerical ranking based on the mixed condition model that we just covered. The metrics, percentages in those metrics, Fantasy National will spit out a ranking. Course value is an attempt at giving a player a numerical value at how well they have played that course in the past 5 years. The lower the number, the better. So you see somebody like Nick Hardy, who's 3 for 3 with a couple of top 25s, has a pretty good course value, whereas Keith Mitchell, who is 0 for 4 in making the cut here, has a horrendous course value. And then we are playing DFS, so projected ownerships, and these are projected ownerships per Fantasy National. Projected ownerships are also part of the calculation into my rankings. My rankings go as such for this week's Sanderson Farms. Eric Cole is my number 1 player. Doug Gim is second, the Gim Reaper for you, P. Third, 6,800, 6K play, Hayden Springer, third in my rankings. Bo Hostler and Nick Hardy round out my top 5. Joel Damon, Keith Mitchell, Rico Hoey, JJ Spawn, and Nick Dunlap round out my top 10. Understand that, players like Hayden Springer, Bo Hostler, while they still rated out very well, they are getting helped a decent bit by their uniqueness compared to others like JJ Spawn, Nick Dunlap, and whatnot. That is certainly helping their overall ranking, or why they are rising. But you take a look at Hayden Springer here. I mean, he's got, in our 3 most important metrics that we put in the mixed condition model, he's top 25 in all 3. He's top 3 in one of them. He gives himself plenty of opportunities. He takes advantage of these par 5s, or the length of the par 5s. Third in birdies are better when it's easy. Look, his worst statistic is the par 3s, and they're only at 5%. So Hayden Springer, I figured he would rise a little bit. I'm still a little surprised that he is third, but it makes a lot of sense when you look at how well he has performed in these metrics. Doug Gim, anytime you are not factoring in a lot of putting, he's going to rise thanks to his premier ball striking. Eric Cole, no surprise, number 1, birdies are better. He gives himself lots of opportunities. Keith Mitchell, despite the fact his course value is so horrendous, still manages to be in the top 10. He was number 1 per the analytics Actually, not a whole lot of love for Keith Mitchell per Fantasy National. It's all about the putter with him, obviously. So no real shock for me other than maybe Hayden Springer. You can always argue the ordering of a lot of these players. But really, I think the only major surprise is Hayden Springer. Otherwise, J.J. Spawn, the most projected on player. Nick Dunlap, I think most people's favorite to win this week. Rico Hoey's been playing very, very well lately. Nick Hardy's been very good here. Also has a lot going for him as well. So enough rambling on my rankings. Let's go through the price board, see where at least members of Fantasy National seem to be gravitating, and let's see if we can figure out the players we can perhaps pivot to and pivot off of. So in the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, we have 3 players this week. We have Keith Mitchell at 10.4, Seamus Power at 10.2, and Mackenzie Hughes at 10,000 even. Now, based on my rankings, you would think that I'm only playing one of these players, and I'm actually not all that excited to play Keith Mitchell this week because of his very, very poor history at the Country Club of Jackson. But I will be playing some Keith Mitchell. His ball striking is just too juicy to pass up, I guess, for lack of better terminology. And I'm just hoping he has, a decent putting week. Because a lot of other things are really, really in his favor. Second in the par 5s, second off the tee, especially when it's easy. Top 5 in irons, 7th in distance. He's got a lot going for him. It's just the putter and his poor performance here. But you'll notice members of Fantasy National, they're not really gravitating to anybody in the 10Ks. Seamus Power is your highest at 13.5. Seems like members of Fantasy National are very wary of Mackenzie Hughes and the possible letdown off of the President's Cup. So in the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, like I mentioned, I'll play my fair share of Keith Mitchell, and I'm going to have very little in terms of Mackenzie Hughes. Seamus Power is indeed a full fade for me. Makes it even easier considering he is the most projected owned player in the 10Ks. But I'm just not really interested in any of these guys to a huge extent. I'm just not. This is not the kind of lineups that I'm building this week. So I'll have some Mitchell, very little Mackenzie Hughes because he is a former champion here, and then no Seamus Power. Seamus Power is a full fade. If he plays well, I will lose. Moving into the 9s, you can see where I'm at. I mean, look at the rankings here. 45th being the worst in the 9Ks. The worst ranked player in the 9Ks, 45th, is still second behind Keith Mitchell in terms of the 10Ks. I like almost everything here in the 9Ks. So I'm going to have a wide exposure, a wide range of lineups in the 9Ks. I like J.J. Spawn. Very, very, very chalky, but for good reason. He's been playing very, very well. I'm actually not scared of Maverick McNeely either this week. I am not nearly as high on him as I was at the Pro Core, but he has putt Bermuda very, very well. And that's what it takes here. His irons haven't been very good. He had been pretty solid off the tee until the Pro Core, at least recently. So I'm not scared to use him. I will back off quite a bit of ownership on him compared to the Pro Core, but I'm not scared of him. Nick Dunlap, love Nick Dunlap. This is more chalk I'll eat. I like everything about Dunlap this week. Griffin's fine. Fishburne's fine. They're popular. Griffin, probably should have won this last year. A couple of bogeys late to go into a playoff with 5 others or 4 others. So, I like both of these players. Probably going to have to limit my use of them a little bit because I like Spawn so much and I love Dunlap so much. Eric Cole, 11%. I like Eric Cole a lot. I know he hadn't played well here, number one birdie or better gained player when it's easy in this field. Top 15 in opportunities. And the guy putts Bermuda very, very well. So I'm expecting Eric Cole to at least perform up to what you would think Eric Cole would in a weaker field. I like Eric Cole. I am a little bit worried about his previous form here, but 11% on Eric Cole in a weak field is very enticing. And these two I will fade only because I'm using literally everybody else in the 9Ks. I mean, I will have Spawn, McNeely, Dunlap, Griffin, Fishburne, and Cole in my lineups. Granted, I play a lot of lineups, but I'm going to use all 6 of these players. So Rogers and Yeager are fades for me. Yeager was my last cut. I really wanted to find a way to put him in a lineup, but I just ended up not. He was my last cut. So in the 9Ks, I'm going to have a whole lot of Nick Dunlap. I'm going to have a good amount of J.J. Spawn. I'll have a good amount of Eric Cole. But I'll have McNeely. I'll have Griffin. I'll have Fishburne. I like almost everything in the 9Ks. Moving to the 8s, I like Chan Kim. Look, anytime it's easy, you got to think about Chan Kim. And I really think this is going to be easy this week. Easier than what it normally is due to the calm winds. With Eric Cole, number one, birdies are better gained when it's easy. Plenty of opportunities. His putter has not been as good, obviously, on Lightning Bermuda, but it's a very small sample size. Again, top 10 in irons. If it's easy, you got to think about Chan Kim. He's popular. It's more chalk I'll eat. Svensson's more chalk I'll eat. Vegas is more chalk I'll eat. I mean, there isn't a whole lot to distinguish ourselves up at the top here unless you're willing to fade the 10Ks, which is what I'm doing. Hey, good evening, Complex. Much appreciated. Thanks for jumping in chat and tuning in this week. It's good to see you this evening. Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to separate ourselves unless you're willing to go to a McNeely, a Rogers, or a Yeager. I think where you're going to find the uniqueness is lower in the price board. So just play the guys that you like up top. I'm willing to fade the entire 10Ks. I mean, I'll have a little bit of Keith Mitchell, like I said, but I'm willing to fade all of this. I can't get away from Spawn and Dunlap, so, I'm choosing to eat this chalk as opposed to the chalk lower in the price board. But yeah, I can't get away from Svensson. Love Svensson. I think this sets up very, very well for Johnny Vegas as well. But just like some others we've talked about, his putter could really hold him back. Plenty of distance, ball striking extraordinaire, at least in this field. If you're worried about the putter, that's one reason to stay away from Johnny Vegas. But I do think he spikes enough to be a worthwhile play. In the 8Ks, if you're looking for some uniqueness, I will point you to Bo Hostler. I don't feel great saying that, but 8th by the analytics, gives himself plenty of opportunities. The irons haven't been great, clearly, subpar, but he putts Bermuda well. He's actually been pretty good off the tee, despite his middling distance. So I would point you to Bo Hostler if you're trying to get off the chalk in the 8s, particularly in the low 8s, like Rico Hoey, Mac Meisner. Good plays. I like Rico Hoey. I'm not as high on Mac Meisner, but I like Rico Hoey. But for a third of the ownership, I do think Bo Hostler is going to be solid this week. Maybe not necessarily 4th, but solid. So there is one player you can kind of pivot to somewhat near the top of the price board. Moving into the upper 7s, this is where it really starts to kind of get dead for me. Doug Gim rated out second, and it's fine. You got to worry about that putter because he's traditionally not a good putter, and he doesn't really spike all that well. Again, he's rising considerably because I only have 5% putting in this mixed condition model. It's all mostly ball striking, and that's why Doug Gim rose so much. I like Doug Gim. You have to be a little worried about the putter. Instead, I'm kind of point you to old Chuck Hoffman. Very good with his wedges, 100 to 125 in particular. Plenty of opportunities. Plenty of distance, plenty of off the tee. I kind of like Chuck Hoffman, and he's had some success here at the Country Club of Jackson in the past 5 years. So in the upper sevens, in that kind of medial or middle area of the price board, kind of like Bo Hostler, if you're looking for some uniqueness, take a look at Charlie Hoffman. I don't hate it. Moving to the mid sevens. Despite where these players ranked for me, I'm actually going to talk about 3 players that I like a decent bit. Now, Fantasy National members, actually 4 players, my apologies. Fantasy National is gravitating towards Henrik Norlander for good reason. He is the strokes gained total leader here at the Country Club of Jackson the past 5 years. His past 4 performances, 4th, 24th, and 2nd. I mean, he has played the Country Club of Jackson exceptionally well. He rated out so terribly because he hasn't been getting a lot of birdies when it's easy, and he hasn't the strongest off the tee. He's more of an iron player, as you see with his top 20 in irons. So he's getting hurt mainly because of the lack of birdies when it's easy and this ownership. This ownership is really, really high. Ignore Henrik Norlander at your own risk. You have to consider him, considering how well he has played. But a couple others in here, right at his price, have played, right around his price, have played just as well as him. C.T. Pan, despite him not being a bomber, he's been very good here. Good with the irons. Generally good from 100 to 125 as well. Take a look at Taylor Moore. Taylor Moore putts the daylights out of Bermuda. And he's got plenty of distance to go with it. So you got a good combination there of driving and putting. His irons have to be a lot better, yes. But in the mid-sevens, I really like Ryan Fox. Not only does he have a top 10, or is top 10 in baseline putting on Lightning Bermuda, but he also spikes a bunch on Lightning Bermuda as well. This is a player that earlier this calendar year was top 50 in the OWGR. I mean, the guy can play. He just did not have a good season. Driving distance, irons is really good. He's just really wayward with the driver. There's not a lot of trouble around Country Club of Jackson, so I don't think being wayward is going to hurt him. I really like Ryan Fox. Having said that, a lot of times when I back Ryan Fox, it blows up in horrifically disastrous fashion. So take that for what you will. I do like Ryan Fox quite a bit this week. So despite where they ranked, these 4 players in the mid-sevens, I'm going to use Ryan Fox a lot. If he does not play well, I will lose. I'm going to be extremely overweight on Ryan Fox. I like Norlander a lot. I don't like this ownership. Moving into the lower sevens, I mean, he's a former champion. I mean, both of these guys, former champions, and the defending champion, I should say. Cameron Champ, Luke List, plenty of distance, plenty of off the tee prowess. Team no putt. Team no putt. Having said that, take a look at Cameron Champ's Lightning Bermuda baseline. It's actually fairly solid. So he's worth a look. He's worth a look. And then Luke List can just get hot. And when I say by get hot, I mean be field average with the putter, and that's when he wins. So if you think, if you like what you saw last year from Luke List, and again, these greens aren't overly complicated, so it makes a lot of sense. These two players are worth a look. I actually won't mind going back to the well with Patton Kazire. I was nowhere near Patton Kazire at the Pro Court, just being honest. But I think Sanderson Farms might suit decently well for him as well. So you could give Patton Kazire a look. I really like Joel Damon, number one in opportunities, and if anyone, whoever's going to win this week at the Country Club of Jackson, they're going to give themselves lots of opportunities. Well, no one's better in this field than Joel Damon. Again, you're just banking on the putter cooperating. So I like Joel Damon. Thorbjornsen, fine. Chesson Hadley's fine. I like Nick Hardy, but man, that's a lot of ownership, just like Norlander. So I can pump the brakes on Nick Hardy a little bit, but it's a fine play. And then at 7,000, I really want to gravitate your attention to Sami Valimaki. He hasn't played in a while, so I have not seen his international performance, his performance on other tours. So he hadn't played on the PGA Tour for a while. But you think about where he was at his best, Mexico. There was one other place that he top 10'd. Those places are very forgiving off the tee. He doesn't have a lot of distance. His irons are generally pretty good. He spikes a lot with the putter on Lightning Bermuda. His baseline is okay, but he spikes a lot, and that's what I'm going with. Spike putter who gives himself a lot of opportunities. In the 6Ks, I actually do have a couple of players to mention to you all. We'll start with Hayden Springer, who was third. He's not my mad scientist play, but I like Hayden Springer. Maybe not third, but I do like Hayden Springer. We talked about him in the reveal of the top 10. Adam Schenk, somebody who has surprised me moving forward in the week from Sunday to Monday to tonight. Third in opportunities. Top 20 in birdies are better when it's easy. His irons are better than what is shown in the past 36 rounds. So give Adam Schenk a look. I like Adam Schenk quite a bit, especially at 1%. Moving down, take a look at S.H. Kim, 2%. You want to talk about spikeability with the putter and generally plays easy courses well. S.H. Kim. Trey Mullinax is fine. Unfortunately, he's getting a little bit more ownership than I like, but the mad scientist play would have been Garrick Higgo. We're going to see, foreshadowing, you're going to see him on the betting card later this evening when I put that to social media. I really like Garrick Higgo this week. He's 2 for 2 here, a third and another top 20 or top 25. You think about his win at the Palmetto at Congaree. Those were Lightning Bermuda greens. You get him. He's got plenty of distance. His off the tee is okay because of that distance, but he's generally pretty wayward. Again, like Cameron Champ, like a couple of these other players, not a lot of trouble around the Country Club of Jackson. So you can just tee it high and let it fly. I like Higgo this week quite a bit in the 6Ks. All right, let's start making some lineups. We're going to start with tiers contests for those who play tiers, and then we'll move to classic and the GPP lineups. So in tiers contests, tier 1 we have 3 players: Keith Mitchell, Seamus Power, and Mackenzie Hughes. If I could skip this tier, I would. I'd probably take Keith Mitchell. I don't want any part of Seamus Power. If you don't think the President's Cup letdown is happening, Hughes would be interesting because he does look like the most unique in the tier. But give me Keith Mitchell in tier 1. Tier 2, Spawn, McNeely, Dunlap, Griffin, and Cole. As much as I like Eric Cole and he's my number 1 player, give me Nick Dunlap. I'm all in on Nick Dunlap this week. Tier 3, Fishburne, Rogers, Yeager, Chan Kim, and Svensson. This one's a little tough. It's between Svensson and Chan Kim for me. 1A and 1B, you're splitting hairs. I know Chan Kim rated out quite a bit better, but I think Svensson's going to play pretty well, and he is coming off that top 15 at the Pro Tour. It's a coin flip for me. I'll take Svensson, hoping that he is just marginally more unique than Chan Kim, but take who you think is the better play there. Tier 4, Matt McCarty, Vegas, Kuchar, Stevens, English, Hostler, and Mac Meisner. McCarty is the Korn Ferry Tour grad. He has won 3 times on the Korn Ferry Tour this year, so he got the automatic promotion to the PGA Tour to finish the year. I don't know much more about him other than he's won 3 times on the Korn Ferry Tour. So if you know something, if you feel confident in him, take him. I don't have any statistics on him because he hasn't played on the PGA Tour. Otherwise, it's between Vegas and Beau Hossler. Give me Beau Hossler. I like Vegas a lot, but I'm going to try to find some uniqueness here with Beau Hossler in Tier 4. Tier 5, Hubbard, Hoey, Doug Gim, Lauer, Hoffman, Novak, and Grillo. Yeah, give me Charlie Hoffman. Otherwise, it would have been Doug Gim, and that putter can be really bad. So give me Hoffman in Tier 5. And then finally, Tier 6. I'll try to get it out of the way as much as I can. Kevin Yu, Sammy Valimaki, Pearson Coody, David Skins, Gary Woodland, Justin Suh, and Trace Crow. Yeah, give me Sammy Valimaki in Tier 6. I think it's just the best play down here by a significant margin. So this tier's construction goes Keith Mitchell in Tier 1. Tier 2 is Nick Dunlap. Tier 3, I'll take Svensson. It's between Svensson and Kim, 1A and 1B. Tier 4 is Hossler. Tier 5 is Charlie Hoffman. Tier 6 is Sammy Valimaki. All right, let's start making some GPP lineups, some classic lineups. Again, I am going off of the projected ownerships at Fantasy National. So, it appears our fellow contestants at Fantasy National are starting with JJ Spawn. 21% projected ownership. They're ignoring the 10Ks. They're going JJ Spawn, probably to Ben Griffin, which is fine. We can put him in here because I'm not terribly high on Griffin. It's okay. I like others more. The issue being, nobody really in the 6Ks is garnering much attention other than Garrick Higo at 9.5%. You got Smalley at 5, Springer at 6.5, Highsmith at 6, Neesmith at 5, Smotherman's at 7. So it doesn't look like our fellow contestants are dropping into the 6Ks much at all. So instead, they're bottoming out at Nick Hardy at 71. So if these are their boundaries, that's if they go Spawn, they might get greedy, try to go to Ben Griffin. This very well could be Chan Kim or Svensson or Vegas. I'm just trying to get them as much up top as possible, which means they're going to have to jump down into the lower portions here, like Norlander, Andrew Novak at 12.5. This could also be both of the 8Ks in Hoey and Meisner. This is a close to a 100% cumulative ownership. That's pretty heavy. Going to be hard to get off of that because I like all 6 of these players, but you cannot use them in combination with each other. That's why you're going to have to find either a unique shell, stars and scrubs, or you're going to have to find some uniqueness off of these players. But that looks to be a pretty chalky lineup. I would not be surprised if this same exact lineup is one of the more duplicated ones in your big GPPs. Another way this construction could go, I'll keep Spawn even though I'm using him. They could drop down into Chan Kim, then maybe go to Johnny Vegas. I would like to use other players, but it is what it is. Hardy's the only one that's garnering a lot of attention down there in the low sevens. And then up here would be Justin Lauer gaining some look, and then Henrik Norlander. So maybe a different way to build a balanced lineup here. Again, close to 100%. Instead of going Spawn Griffin or double 9, they're dropping down and using a couple 8s and then an upper 7 to finalize their lineup. So there's a look at what appears to be the chalky lineup of the week. I'm going to build you a couple lineups. First is going to be the Stars and Scrubs. It's not the lineup that I prefer, but it does appear that you're going to be gaining a lot of leverage by default building a Stars and Scrubs lineup. Me, personally, if I am going to build one, it will be with Keith Mitchell. Again, I don't want any part of Seamus Power. I will use a little bit of Mac Hughes, but I don't have a problem with using Keith Mitchell a little bit. 12.5% as our start is not bad at all. And I'm not afraid to go down into the 6Ks for a few, not necessarily a few players in the same lineup, but I can mix this up. I can go Hayden Springer, Adam Schenk at 1%. I really would have liked to have gone to Garrick Higgo, but he's the most popular 6K play. SH Kim, I mentioned, 2%. So I'm going to throw Adam Schenk into this. 1% Adam Schenk. Really highlight how unique you can get, but throw in your favorite, 6 or even really 7K or 7,100 play. I mentioned Sami Valimaki, 3%. Maybe you like the putting prowess of Zach Blair. He didn't rate out very well. He hasn't played well here, but maybe you like Zach Blair. Maybe somebody else kind of speaks to you in the lowest of low sevens. And then moving up, 7,200, there's a lot of options here. Thorbjornsen, Chesson Hadley, Joel Damon rated out top 10 in my model. I'll throw in Thorbjornsen into this one. Bjornsen. Sub 10%. Can't argue with the talent of the player. He hasn't put it together yet on the PGA Tour, but he's just right outside of college. Top 10 in opportunities. Goes low when it's easy. We don't know how well he'll putt on Bermuda yet, so that's a true wild card, a true unknown. Plenty of distance. Seems like this is a good fit for Thorbjornsen. And then, off of Keith Mitchell, choose the player that you like in the 9s. Maybe you like McNeely for some ultra uniqueness. Might be a little bit too much for me. I like Nick Dunlap. Eric Cole is somebody else that you can go to. I do think Eric Cole is going to be a little bit more than 11% what Fantasy National is projecting. But if Eric Cole's truly at 11 to 12%, I think that's a solid play. You still have 8,200 to finalize your lineup. You could squeeze in one of these chalkier upper 8s like a Chan Kim, like an Adam Svensson. Let's do Chan Kim on this one. And then that leaves us 75. That's Henrik Norlander. If you want to come off of Chan Kim, go to maybe Svensson or Vegas. Frees up a little bit more money where you could go Norlander, Taylor Moore, CT Pan, Cameron Champ. Gives you a lot of options in here. In fact, I'm going to go back to Chan Kim. 75 is Norlander, who's fine, just kind of chalky. You can afford to take him because you're still only at 67% cumulative ownership thanks to the style of lineup you've built with the Stars and Scrubs. Not a lot of people are going into the 10Ks seemingly. Dropping into the 6s is not happening hardly at all. So you're gaining a lot of leverage by default. You can afford to take a couple of chalkier players. But the lineups that I'm building the most, I am trying to beat these balanced builds. Not going into the 10Ks. Again, I have no problem starting with McNeely, but I'm going Dunlap. I'm all in on Nick Dunlap this week. And I honestly don't mind throwing in a 6K into this if I really want to get or try to squeeze in a lot up here. Go like a Dunlap, Eric Cole, and then squeeze like or put a Higo, put a Shank, put a Hayden Springer in here. But I will try to stay with the traditional the traditional balanced build of a 9, maybe a low 9 or upper 8. So I've been going Nick Dunlap, Chan Kim, Adam Svensson. You can absolutely throw Johnny Vegas into this, Bo Hostler. And you've got 3 players here that you can average 7,800. You don't even have to flirt with the 6Ks if you don't want to. For me, Ryan Fox is absolutely in this. I'm going to use quite a bit of Ryan Fox, Bo Hostler, Charlie Hoffman is pretty darn unique at 7,800. This leaves 8,000, but you can also leave some money on the table and gain a lot of uniqueness that way. I'm actually going to try to squeeze in a little bit more in here. Let's go Ryan Fox, 72, Thor Bjornsson, Joel Damon, who's the third player I mentioned? Chesson Hadley, all fine. I'll throw Joel into this. Svensson, Vegas. Oh yeah, Vegas, and then Hostler. A little bit more ownership than the Stars and Scrubs, just due to the nature of using Dunlap, Svensson, Vegas, or maybe Griffin, Kim, Vegas. But there's plenty of opportunity in the 7s to gain a lot of uniqueness. Really, it kind of starts with Bo Hostler at 82. But, Charlie Hoffman, Ryan Fox. If you want to get off the Henrik Norlander chalk, I like Ryan Fox a lot. You can look at Cameron Champ, who's won this event before. Joel Damon, Thor Bjornsson, Hadley. If you want to come off the Nick Hardy chalk, those 3 are great. Sami Valimaki. So those are the kinds of lineups that I've been building most often, just mixing and matching a lot of these lineups. One lineup I'll go Dunlap, and then the next I might go like Fishburne, and then up, Ryan Fox to maybe a Charlie Hoffman. Very similar style lineups here. I am trying to squeeze in as much Dunlap, Svensson, Chan Kim as I can. A little bit of Spawn too. I like Spawn. He's just the most projected on player. I'm trying to squeeze in as many of those players as I can, and then kind of doing a scatter shot of the low 7s with Valimaki, Damon, Thor Bjornsson, somebody I didn't mention, but Jacob Bridgman is fine. Kazire, Hadley. So those are the style of lineups that I am building most often. I'll leave that up for you all. No one and done. That ended with the Tour Championship, so no answer there. For me, the poll question of the evening: who scores the most fantasy points this week? Right now, chat seems to be in favor of Mackenzie Hughes. I might go Matt McCarty, only because I know he's in good form, having won 3 times this year. Of the 3 known commodities, I'd probably go Hughes as well. It's definitely not Fowler for me, who's the one who's not getting any love. Boy, how the mighty have fallen there. I'll probably say Mackenzie Hughes. I wouldn't be surprised about Matt McCarty either. So there's my answer to the poll question. Reminder that I'm going to be in Gabe's Substack chat immediately following the show this evening. So if you're not subscribed to his article, it is free to do. Make sure you are doing that. We'll be continuing the DFS talk over there. And then be on the lookout for my betting cards and the top player usage in my lineups this week for the Sanderson Farms. I'm going to be posting that to social media a little bit later this evening once I finalize everything. But I want to thank P, Larry and Complex for jumping into chat. It's very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, and supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Some weeks better than others, obviously. So we're going to try and have a solid week for the Sanderson Farms. So thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you've made this week for the Sanderson Farms, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the Sanderson Farms. For this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.